Mhm. That's a little creepy. Do 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 do. Mhm. 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 Ba 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 bum.
Good morning.
Good morning. Oh, I forgot something. I have to be right back.
No worries.
I forgot my little earbuds. Oh, man. Oy, oy, oy. All right. How's it going?
Good. How are you?
I'm doing very well. How's the new school year going?
It's going well so far.
Yeah?
Just it's busy. Everything's always there's something to do all the time, you know.
Yeah, for
Yeah.
sure. And it's a new group, right? You don't follow the group you had last year?
Exactly. New group.
Okay.
How's yours?
Um yeah, no, it's going well. It's been nice because I've been able to I think compressed a lot of ideas and stuff in my head. So they're a little easier to use. And so this is the first year where I've started from the beginning, kind of a lot of the big things that I've wanted to do.
Mhm.
And I think that helps a lot.
Yeah.
You know, because like I think once they get used to something, because when you learn something you want to try it, but it's way easier to just have it be part of the norm than it is to introduce it later, I think. So I
Mhm.
think I think I'll see, kind of effective and positive things throughout the year because of that. So no, things have been going very well.
So, like, what's one example of something that you've been wanting to do?
The way I'm doing like classroom meetings where um that's a little different because usually I had used them as just a way to get to know each other. Like that's it. Like I didn't use it for anything else for like the first 3-4 months of school, and then I would kind of slowly transition into this what I wanted to do when it came to like problem solving or using it as a forum for the kids to make decisions and have influence and control over the classroom. And so I started that from like day one. So I think they're getting into it and they feel like the classroom is way more theirs than previous classes have.
Mhm.
So and I think I've done an effective job like listening to them and showing them that they get to have choice and they get to make decisions that impact the whole classroom. I mean, it's not a utopia where everything's going well. I don't want to. We struggle with time, but they're aware of it. I think they're way more aware of things we need to work on as a group, and so I've just been doing different things and like trying to figure out. It's like transitions are important. Like I tell them, I was like, if we're late a minute every day, that's 3 hours. Because at least if that's just 1 minute, so if that's 1 minute every time we start something, then now we're at 3 hours of lost learning or lost work or something. So it's
Mhm.
I know it's just a minute, but like that compounds itself. And so that's something that they've been wanting to work on, because I don't tell them what the goals are. So, we just, when something happens, I'm like, what kind of class do we want to be? And then they have a discussion on that. And it's not a great one yet, but we're slowly getting there. And so right now we have, like, we want to be timely. Everybody wants to feel psychologically, emotionally, and physically safe. What's the other two? We wanted to start on time. We want to celebrate successes and have a positive atmosphere or environment. And I can't remember what our fourth one is, just because we've been doing so much work on the time one. and so they still look at it as, I'm on time. It's the other person's fault, instead of, and I'm trying to get them to switch their lens to, how can I help people? How can we actually be a team that helps each other get ready? And so one of the things I've started to do now, really inspired, I think, by another student, is like, when I'm ready, now I go out to the students and see what kind of help they need. Like, what's going on? What do you need from me? How can I assist to make sure that you're on time? And hopefully then that modeling will help the kids see, oh, that's something I could be doing. Instead of just yelling at the child to sit down. Because that's basically their only tool right now, is just yelling at the kid. So, and I'm like, that's not helping anything. But that's the only tool they have. Because that's probably all that's been modeled for them,
Yeah.
Is repeating the kid's name a bunch until they sit down.
Man, you're doing some revolutionary stuff.
We'll see. I don't know. It's not revolutionary.
Well, you're at least attempting.
It's like 1890s revolutionary. That's the sad part, I think.
Is it? Like, how so? What do you mean?
I mean, because all that's like John Dewey stuff, and so he came up with that like 1890s, 1910s, 1920s. So.
But with what? Like just the ownership idea, or what do you mean?
I think so, yeah, and just like listening to kids, trying to help them out, not seeing them as some entity that you are, because he was appalled at how original schools were, not the one room schoolhouse, but when we started to transition into the industrial model, it was super chaotic and super awful, and he just couldn't believe it. And so then he put forth these ideas and theories about things, which I have not read through. I don't want to. I know that he has, and I know some of them, but I have not read his work. That's on the list someday. But he put forth some ideas, and that's kind of Finland. Finland uses all of his stuff. I mean, nothing's new.
Yeah.
On some level. And like did you listen to that whole Jordan Peterson, the new one with that evolutionary biologist kind of guy?
No, I haven't.
That podcast?
Not yet, no.
Well, one of the things that they talk about is, you have to have the space to talk and to shoot out ideas, because one of the things that happens is that we come up with an idea before we can prove it. And so the one that they talk about is in the Bible, in those stories, it talks about how you don't poop in camp. Like you need to make sure that you're pooping somewhere other than where you live. And then, that turns into plumbing, and that turns into da-da-da-da. And that was thousands of years before we understood why you shouldn't do that. And so one of the things that now, like with the brain science that's happening, being able to measure and doing functional MRIs and everything, is we can see which of our strategies are worth it. And all the powerful ideas that we've had before, we can actually test them to see, which ones are quote unquote better or whatever, better for the brain at least. So,
but like ideas in what regard? Like, what do you mean? Like they're looking at the brain and then saying this is a good idea just by seeing the activity of the brain?
Oh, or like the only one I'm trying to. It's just because I learned it yesterday. We've been going to this conference, this cognitive coaching conference. I had one last year, and so this is like the next session. So the last was Friday, Saturday, today, and tomorrow. So for example, there's a skill. There's what paraphrasing is, and so with functional MRIs, they can see that when someone is in, I can't even remember what that's called, but like, I mean, they call flipping your lid. But when emotion has taken over your brain and you cannot control, you have no access to your prefrontal cortex because of your emotions reside in your limbic system.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're super upset, you have no access to your executive functions. Like you can't think
Wow.
about stuff. And so if you are upset and projecting and like, and people just come up and are like, yeah, no, oh, that's awful, let's try and figure it out. That does nothing for you. Like you have no access. And like people are like, okay, so what do you want to do? Talk to me. What are some things you could do? You don't have access to that area. So what they have found is that when people what they have found previously is that when you paraphrase someone, especially when they're upset, it calms them down. So now when they can scan your brain as you're upset and someone is paraphrasing you, they now see through. It's really interesting because they showed like you can see where all the energy is and stuff in certain areas of the brain, and you can see it kind of. You can see the focus is in the limbic system when they're upset, and then after the paraphrasing, you see it kind of spreading out back up to their prefrontal cortex, so that they're in control of their functions and everything. So it's pretty. It's a wild place we live. Just stuff happening all the time, everywhere.
Yeah.
Good and bad.
Yeah. That's interesting. I like that type of psychology. This is more empirical than.
Yeah.
I mean, I like a lot of stuff within psychology, but that's way more measurable, isn't it?
It is. Yeah, and if your school ever does any sort of cognitive coaching stuff where they ask for people to like get trained, I think you'd be super into that.
Yeah, I would be for sure. Because I try to integrate those ideas. I don't really know a lot of things on that level, but anytime I found little nuggets like that, I try to remember that for the class. Yeah.
Yeah, and there's a lady that's at the seminar, and we were talking last night. Just that we're kind of junkies on that stuff, and she's getting her doctorate in like how to motivate, but what the brain science is behind motivation. And so we were talking, and she has access to people who just give classes on the latest research, and so she was going to share that stuff with me. And then we were kind of talking about how, at least in general, at least the schools that we're at, where they don't tend to look inside for expertise first. They look outside to bring someone in. And so we were trying to come up with ways of which we could try to convince schools to first, look within first, and then look maybe in the schools around us to see if there's expertise in that, because that's a way less money. Right. I mean, just at the beginning, it's just, you're saving a bunch of money if you just, even as if through a hangout or something, just you get some teacher who is interested in it, or a quasi expert who can then share their knowledge with other teachers. And I think it makes it a little bit more authentic and everything. So that might be something we try and develop and then pitch to the powers that be to kind of go from there.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah. So, no, it's been a good couple of days, and I'm looking forward to it. I'm just tired.
Where are you doing that? At school?
I have to go down to Medellin because of the Pope.
Congratulations.
Yeah, thank you. Because the Pope was here yesterday, and Friday, I'm not sure the whole ins and outs of it, but Friday and Saturday they had, I don't even know, like a disaster response team, I guess you would call it, camped out at our school with helicopters, and it was a bunch of military and police and rescue people, and it was I mean, from what Juan David was talking about, it seemed super interesting because this was a system that was developed by the Japanese during that awful earthquake nuclear plant incident, and that the Colombians have actually made some improvements and innovations on that strategy, and this was the first time that it was ever implemented. So I think it was like a training exercise, but also just in case something happened, because we had another 1 million people in the city, I guess. And so they needed an area to kind of practice this, and our school was like the perfect spot just with the space and where it was located. So Friday was actually a virtual day, and then so like we did school online or whatever, and so we could not use the school, so now we're down. Do you remember where San Fernando Plaza is, or was?
Yeah.
That's where the conference is right now. So we get the
Okay.
yeah. So it's good. It's been good. It's been interesting.
I
But
saw
yeah,
some live feed. It looked like an
yeah,
exciting place.
yeah, for sure. I didn't notice anything just from where we were because he was down at the municipal airport. I think that was in his major area.
Hmm.
And that thing had been closed for a week. So they had to route all those flights up to Rio Negro and then get them down somehow.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
You said something that I thought was interesting. You were talking about, the whole industrial education, I think whatever,
Yeah.
the bell sound, the rows
Yeah.
versus the one room schoolhouse.
Mhm.
What do we know about the one room schoolhouse? I wonder how that matches up.
I don't know. I don't know, but I think there's some pretty good stuff in there because you had from two things that I've read like very, very briefly. I don't even know where they're from at this point because it was way long ago. One of the things I think was effective was having you had multiple age levels, and so you had
Hmm.
older kids who felt ownership over stuff and were helping the younger kids out. So I mean I think that's has to be positive. Like if you get to teach, some of the kids some content on some level, and that's ownership and responsibility. And then another thing they said was they had so many chalkboards like out in the room that as a teacher, when people were working, like you had really good access to what they were working on because it was just on the walls.
Mm.
Because like all the walls were chalkboards and like people were just kind of writing and working, and so you had a very nice advantage to kind of look around and see everybody's work, which I was like, yeah, that would totally that would be nice. That would be nice. So those are the two things I've heard. I don't know. I think the clothing maybe that probably was not a great thing.
The clock.
they had to wear they had to wear a ton of clothes, so I don't know. So I don't know what the impact of that was. But I would think there's some schools that do that now. So
Which part?
the clothing, no, the multi-age, the multi-age. I don't know how far they go multi-age, but I would have to think there's some progressive schools or something out there where you have different ages. I
Hmm.
mean, I know on some level, it's just like 5 and 6 year olds. So I mean, that's not any groundbreaking stuff. But like, I'd be interested to see how many schools do have a wide range in one room.
So, just thinking about how things seemingly at least got messed up with like the factory system.
Hmm.
I guess it's obviously at least in some ways a very efficient way to educate as many people as
Yes.
quickly as possible.
Hmm.
Um, so then thinking about like moving forward from that, is there anything new, or is it really just looking back at like John Dewey and those guys and just trying to do what they said 100 years ago and finally do it?
Yeah. I don't know. I think there probably has to be something new. Um, but you also can look at models that are working. And then another really important thing I've learned since the summer is what works in your context, or not what works, but yes, this thing works. Okay, and now you've taken it and now you're using it. You have to figure out how it works in the context of how you're using it. And so, for example, like we do readers and writers workshop in elementary school, and that is a system and a way of teaching that quote unquote works, and it's very effective. And the one thing I'm working on now is thinking, okay, yeah, where the place that it's done very, very well, and it's done systemically with really high level teachers. And so that has an impact on the kids, obviously, from day one. And so that's the system that they have there. And that's not the system that is at our school, and the kids are all people who are learning English. So that has to be taken in. So it's like, how does this system that's super effective work in the place where I am? And so that's some things that I'm actually thinking about now. So it's like, even though something works, it doesn't mean you implement it exactly with the group of children and the group of teachers that you have, because that does not, if you're not thoughtful about it, then it can just be a big waste. But I think people need to be pushing stuff, and they need to be trying things out and like researching and like, oh, let's try this strategy out and see what that works in our context, or let's kind of keep up to date on things. So did I even answer your question?
I don't know. I just got captivated. I'm not even sure.
But yes, it's just like, I think the thing that frustrates me a lot, and I know that there's schools that are not like this. It's just like, we need to be researchers as teachers. You know, we have these kids that we can be, and I'm not talking about like tests and data and stuff, but like if you watch them and observe them, and you see who they are, and then you're collecting all this information, and then according to brain science, what's something that's powerful to do. And so you look at that, and maybe you just pick one thing, because there's like these 12 super strategies or whatever from this NeuroTeach book that I read.
Mm-hmm.
And so you pick one of those strategies. You're like, I'm going to investigate the strategy. I'm going to find out what it is. And I'm going to go and I'm going to try stuff out. And we have 6 people on our team. Well, you investigate too, and you try something different than me, and let's get together and see what the results are. But a lot of times the stuff we're trying to, like, have you ever heard, like, just because something isn't measurable doesn't mean it's not worthy to be striven for, kind of thing. Like, how do you measure happiness when it comes to a student in your classroom? Do you just ask them, I'm happy? You can't give them a test, quote unquote.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Maybe you can, I don't know. But I just think we need to start really being thoughtful of what we're doing, and trying to be better every year, kind of thing. So,
yeah.
Yeah,
I remember a wise teacher once told me that there's a lot of 20-year teachers who only have 1 year experience because they just do the same thing over and over and over
again. That's awesome. That's really good.
That always stuck with me. She was one of my professors.
Wow. Mm-hmm. That is such a great way to say that.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, horrifying, but but that really solidifies it. Yeah. Because that's what they say. Like, you can't look at years of experience and take anything out of that, especially in education. And then that's just so malpractice. Because it's like, I graduated. Like, if you went to a doctor who graduated medical school in 1990, they're like, I just do the same thing every year. I don't learn anything. I would be like, well, no, I'm not using you. You're not operating on me.
Mm-hmm.
And I always compare this stuff to the medical community, but probably because, that's kind of what I grew up with my dad. But like, what we do is so much more powerful. Like, I understand it's life and death with doctors. Like, I get that. However, I almost think we should be looking at almost life and a life unfulfilled, when it comes to teaching.
Mm-hmm. Because
that's what we're dealing with. And like, the impact that we can have positively and negatively with children is just enormous. So, yeah.
So how would you evaluate someone?
Oh no, I don't think we should evaluate. So,
well, yeah, I mean, just in your own, like, you have a school, but you have a school and you're going to hire someone.
Yeah.
I mean, evaluation in that context, like whether or not you want them there, like how do you? What do you look at?
I've been reading. I kind of paused to read something else. Oh, I have to tell you 2 books that I had been looking at. Have you? And I know we probably won't even get to compulsory stuff today, and that's fine. Just a quick chat. Okay, so did I tell you about Work Rules from the guy that is the HR guy from Google? I think I may have mentioned that before, with the calling. Like, people view the job as a job, a competition.
Right. Yeah. Yep.
And so Google's thing is, at least at the time of the writing, I don't know I can't speak to it now because that was 2012. So this has been some years. But they understand that when you interview someone, you make a decision about them in the first 30 seconds, and then you spend the rest of your time confirming your own bias. And so what they've been trying to do is take that out of the equation. So they have certain interviewers. Those interviewers give questions, any kind of question they want, and there's some standard questions. And then they write down. I don't know if they write down. They probably type down or have their AI record the conversation. Who knows what's going on? And then that interviewer then rates the interviewee, and then that interviewee goes through like 8 or 9 more interviews, and then they look at the collective information, and then that way people can look at the person's response without having bias towards them. And so they look at the original person's rating, but then people are also doing that. So they have a committee of people looking at things independently and separately to try and take away groupthink and to try and take away that analysis. But they also do cognitive tests. So they want to make sure that what your cognitive function ability is first. So you have to pass that first, which I think would be an interesting thing to do with teachers. I don't know, because I was talking to Juan David yesterday, and he was saying that in Colombia, they take a post-Saber test, like when they graduate college, and the graduates with the and I mean, I know this is Colombia, but I'd be interested to see what the research is in the States on this.
Mm-hmm.
The graduates with the lowest reading comprehension and writing quality are education graduates. So.
Wow.
Yeah.
Why would that be?
Because I don't. All right. My theory.
Just do it.
My theory is, because of the stuff I've read and listened to about Finland, is it's so easy to become a teacher that we do not set up education in a compelling way for the best and brightest people to want to get into, because it's such an easy avenue to go. And so I don't.
Sorry, go ahead, finish your thought.
No, so I just don't think that the profession attracts. I'm not going to use the word smart, but people with, at the moment, high levels of cognitive capacity.
Doesn't that just mean smart?
I don't. Well, because I think with the way that we use smart, like, we believe that people are either smart or they're not smart, and you don't have any control over that, and that's not true. So that's why. Yeah, I've had a lot of like this. There's this other thing now where it's like, I'm super annoying, at least with Diana, when I try to explain something now, because I try not to use labels anymore.
Right.
And it's super hard. And I'm like, oh, that's probably why we have labels, because it makes it easier to just, it's easier to just label something and then just leave it, and it's so much harder to try and actually explain something. So it's like, I'm not smart. I'm just a person who has had several experiences in which my connections of my brain have increased capacity to, and I've compressed ideas in order, but no one wants to say that. Like, that's too much. It's just like, yeah, you're smart. I get it. Shut up. Move on to something else.
Yeah.
So, I don't know.
Language is a massive system of labels.
Yes. And some of them are horrifying. And just do a lot of damage.
So I thought that when you said that they have the lowest, I thought it was something to do with the actual courses of education, like the actual.
Well, that could be too.
Which is bad. Which is also. I don't know. I was just, because the first half, or 3 years out of my 4 for my major, was really not education based. It was mostly the area that I was doing, which was social sciences.
Yeah.
And that you do have to write and read and
yeah. Well, see, then that's interesting. So there's probably a lot to that, and that's probably coupled with the idea that it's so easy to get in. Like, do you remember what the qualifications to get into the education program was when you were going to school?
No, I don't remember. But I mean, obviously there was a GPA base that you had to have and things like that.
Yeah, because where I went, UCF, and the only reason I know this is because the first time I went to college, I just dropped out and I didn't withdraw from my classes. So I got all Fs the last semester. So my GPA when I went back to college was like a 1.2 or something like that.
Yeah.
So then I built it up when I went back to like community college, but it was just at like a 2.1. So by the time that I had to declare for a major, I had no options except for like sociology and education, because education, you had to have a 2.0. That was it to get in. And everything else was like a 3 or a 3.5.
Why would that be?
I don't know. But see, like in Finland,
government job, I guess.
Yeah, on some level. But like in Finland, it's the equivalent of getting into MIT. Like they only have 7 schools where they even allow you to have the education major. So,
but I mean, like, there's always truth in everything and
yeah.
untruth in everything, untruth. But I don't know. We're just going down a rabbit hole that doesn't even matter. What I was about to say.
That's fine.
Even
we got 10 minutes. We got 10 minutes. It can be a 10-minute rabbit hole.
Well, just the idea of like the 3.0, 3.5 thing. Like, obviously, you're probably going to get some bright people doing that, but you're also going to get people who are just right in the box and willing to follow the rules.
Oh, of course, yeah.
You know.
Yeah, there's some book about valedictorians that, or not research, that they just on average don't do anything great. Because it just meant that you were really good at the system that you were in, and you weren't like some courageous free thinker kind of thing, like innovator. So I think there's a lot to that. But yeah, it's I don't know. I and I don't want to simplify things, because I think that's another thing that we do. Like talking to Diana, my wife, about that stuff. It's like we tend to simplify stuff to the point that we've really taken out all the important things about the ideas, kind of thing. And I can't remember the specific example we were talking about, but I think just like with that, like, oh, we just need to make it harder to be a teacher. Oh, that's kind of simplifying it. I think, like you said, then the program needs to be harder. It needs to give you better experiences. Because like that's the other thing in Finland, and it's 6 years. You have to write a thesis. You are surrounded by educators who are excellent, and like you are critiqued. Like you go to do your student teaching, you have 5 people in the room that are expert teachers that are giving you feed forward, as I call it now. I stole that from somebody else. I can't remember who, so I apologize for that. And then like it's this constant excellent system that they've created to create, and then but that's not enough, because then now their education system is one that allows that kind of those people to flourish. And so it is so much change that you have to do. So I don't know. I don't know, but that's a good first step, I think, is like you want the best people being teachers, quite frankly. And I know that that's maybe not a popular thing to say, that we're different, people. We have different capacities, and at the moment, I think we all have capacities to do all human things. So, but I don't know. Oh, but the other 2 books I'm looking at, I think you would. Have you heard of that Homo Sapiens, or it's called Sapiens?
I've got it and haven't started it.
Oh, so good. I'm only like 3 pages in. But
You're the second person this week.
Oh, there you go. Signs.
Yeah.
Signs.
Yep.
And then there's another one called Big Data. Or no. Everyone Lies. Everyone Lies. So it's this guy's, he's done a ton of research on Google searches. And because that's the place where we're honest. Because we lie on census, on polls, on interviews, but on Google and on the internet, we are our true person. And so as a psychology guy too, it's super interesting. So I was about 30 pages into that, but I gave that up to read Sapiens, because I had been wanting to read Sapiens for a while. So I've started that. So, but really, it almost explains the Trump win, and that racism is rampant in the U.S., and it's not a north-south thing; it's an east-west thing.
East-west thing.
Well, he tracked the places with the N-word in Google searches, followed by jokes, or like when Obama was president, because everyone thought we were in a new utopia of non-racism once Obama was elected, because everyone lied on their surveys. Like, if you get polled, you're like, no, I'm not a racist. I love everyone. And then you go home and you type in N-word jokes in your Google search. Well, I think you're probably a racist. And so what he did is he looked for where that was popular, like where that was, where the most people did that. And so he found that in the top 20% of the areas of the United States, like, maybe counties, I want to say, I think it was counties, the top 20% most racist jokes kind of searched for, all went to Trump. And it was all along the East, all in that area and nothing out west. So I thought that was interesting because most people
Yeah.
think racism is just a Southern thing, and that's not accurate at all. So
Yeah.
so there's a lot of interesting tidbits like that in there, and kind of his view on things, and kind of this, because this is the most information we've ever had on like the human psyche. So
Yes. I can't wait. I mean, I'd love to be maybe with the advancements, you and I'll have like mechanical bodies and we'll be able to see what's going on in 150 years. But I can't wait to see what they learn about us from all this data that's being saved through our internet searches and everything. You know, I can't remember if I told you this before too, but imagine how history is going to be different in the future. Like, regardless of the persona you give to people in the outside world, everything you've ever searched for is recorded.
Yep.
Everything. You know what I'm saying? Like,
yeah.
And maybe there's no, everything you ever put a like on. And I don't know how deep it goes. Maybe they know how long you stared at, like I've heard like on Instagram or wherever, there's some algorithm that sees how long you stared at a photo.
Yeah, I'm sure.
So imagine what you're going to know about people in good ways and bad ways.
Yeah. And
imagine writing a biography in 100 years.
Yeah. No, it's a long one, right?
Well, I'm just saying, like,
everybody.
imagine if you had all these guys, like, who's a favorite, like Lincoln. Imagine if Lincoln had Google and you're writing a biography about Lincoln now. Like, just imagine the data, you know?
That's true. Oh, there's a whole, you just gave somebody an idea for a whole biography, like a fake biography series. Like, what would Lincoln have been searching for? And like, you take all the famous dead people and you're like, what would have been their, Google searches. So
it used to be so much. I don't know if this is a true statement, but I was about to say it used to be so much easier to control the persona that you give. But maybe now it's easier. I don't know. Maybe your Facebook page and all your social media is obviously giving the best of you. You're not showing any of the bad.
Yeah. But on that though, but you're right. Like we can control that more, and so now it's even more fake. Like you were talking about how our ego like is an illusion on some level. Well, now that's the super ego. I mean, this thing is just a complete illusion of what you show online, and then the complete you is what you don't show online. Like that's you. So on some level, well, I shouldn't say on some level. We're all those parts, but yeah. So it would be one of my hopes there that when you were saying that is like maybe we'll get a better grasp on who we are and. Oh, most people aren't violent. Maybe that'll help us to be, as a society, more peaceful. Because we had talked about that one time, like if you think history is violent, and then that you had come up with that idea about that just perpetuates our need to be violent is because we believe we are violent. Kind of thing. So maybe that could be something good that comes out, unless a lot of people are just watching violent videos all the time, which could possibly be true. So,
I was wondering, like, one thing that always got, like, sometimes when I do start to get tired of being in a particular place, as far as being a teacher, it's usually the institutional culture that gets to me. I start to feel stifled.
Yeah.
As a person. So, and then talking about like the part you show the world and the part you don't, this leads me to this question. How much of Mr. Light is Ben?
Yeah.
You ever think about that?
Yeah, I do. And that's especially when it comes to adults, because I think kids see me more for who I am than adults do.
Really?
Yeah, for sure. And because I'm different with kids than I am with adults. And that's one thing I'm trying to work on anyway, because I take this stuff super seriously. Like I see, like I'm trying to like save the world kind of thing. Like that's my mission as an educator. And when I run into people who don't have that same mindset, then I'm just like, it's really hard for me to work with them. Or that aren't coming from a spot of love. Like if I don't think you love all the kids, like it's hard for me to take you seriously. But I need to start helping people, but I don't know how to do that in a good way. So I probably seem upset a lot and angry and like super serious. And I think probably people think I'm like that outside too, outside of work. But with my kids, with the students, I'm not like that at all. I mean, I do when I find something super serious, like I will talk about it extremely seriously, but that is one thing I'm trying to work on with like my craft is like really bringing in the enthusiasm I feel about it instead of the seriousness. So I go back and forth, and I think I've done a better job of that this year. But I definitely think my students see more who I am really than teachers do. How about yourself?
It's changed depending on where I've been.
Yeah.
But definitely, I remember early on when I didn't know if after my first 2 years teaching in public school system, one of the things that kind of really got to me was that I felt like I wasn't becoming all that I could be. I don't know how to explain. Like I almost like, it's weird. They say like, "Hey, what do you do?" And then you say what you do to define who you are. Like I'm a teacher, or I'm a baker, or whatever. Right. I'd love to just be like, I'm an artist. I'd love to have the courage to say that.
Yeah.
Except for I don't paint or draw anything, Right. But I would love to be able to do that. I'd love to just start doing that.
Yeah. But you are an artist.
Yeah. I mean, I think we all are, aren't we? But
yeah.
But definitely there's, in that context, like in high school, I mean, if a kid asks you, have you ever smoked weed? I mean, Kel would say, yeah, but Mr. Simpson has to responsibly lie.
Man.
Exactly. Mr. Simpson has to responsibly lie to the kid,
And take away a great opportunity to be able to actually teach someone about something.
Well, but I think the institution requires that as also.
Of course.
I mean, everything is context.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah,
but hopefully
like
not teaching them where to get it. That way.
No.
I'm just okay.
Wow, you just gave me another idea of class. What classes are mandatory? There's one.
There you go. Yeah. Well, actually, I think that one would be, for me, it's like, here's your brain, and this is the impact. This is the impact stuff has on your brain.
Yeah.
So, especially as a young person, before that 25 thing, I just want at least, I've been talking to my 5th graders about that. So. But yeah, but like the identities, right? We have so many identities. Like in what defines us. So, like
almost like politically, and I don't want to be like I want to get to a place in life where I am just me. That's why I like the artist thing, because I like when I see artists, they don't really give a shit what you think,
right.
And I want to be like that, and I think that there's environments that even in education that are closer to that. I'm in one now, but a politician is never giving you the truth. They're always giving you their persona, and a teacher does that a little bit or a lot, depending on where you are and who you are.
True. Do you need to go? Is it time for the yoga?
Yeah. We're
okay, man.
Wrap it up.
All right, brother.
Hey, I've got some good, some fun ideas nonetheless about the topic that we want to discuss. Cool. So let's try to do that next time. Yeah.
Yes, sir. Love it.
Yeah, and send me those books. Send me a link or something.
I will definitely. Yeah, and then if you've been reading anything or articles or videos or something, because I wanted to tell you one last thing. Juan David was showing me this article. Well, he's shown the lady an article about corporations as organisms. And I was like, oh my God, that's Alan Watts. That's from the 60s. And then I was like, I felt so great that I could connect that in. But so this is a new idea. Like this idea of looking at the people that you work with as an organism is now quote unquote new. And I was like, oh my God, no, I was listening to a video about this from Alan Watts. And so he's like, who, Alan Watts? And I was like, yeah, check all that stuff out. It's awesome. So
Juan David's awesome, dude. He studied philosophy, Yeah, he's a great guy to vibe with. All right, brother. I enjoyed it. Yeah.
Yes, sir. See you
later.